Almost forgot to turn the mic on. We're going to go with the usual graphic warning. Warning, graphic content, description of crime scenes, sexual assault. Furthermore. So let's talk about the murder of Travis Alexander and the perpetrator, Jodi Arias. Travis Victor Alexander was an American salesman who was murdered by his ex-girlfriend Jodi Ann Arias in his house in Mesa, Arizona. Arias was convicted of first-degree murder on May 8, 2013 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on April 13, 2015. At the time of the murder, Alexander suffered 27 knife wounds and a gunshot to the head. Arias testified that she killed him in self-defense, but she was convicted by the jury of first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, the jury deadlocked on the death penalty option, and Arias was thus sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The murder and trial received widespread media attention in the United States. I think we all heard about this case. And if you didn't, you live under a rock, because everybody knows this case. Travis Victor Alexander was born on July 28, 1977 in Riverside, California, to Gary David Alexander and Pamela Elizabeth Morgan Alexander. At the age of 11, Travis moved in with his paternal grandparents after his father's death in July 1997, and his 7 siblings were also taken in by their paternal grandmother. Alexander was a salesman and motivational speaker for prepaid legal services, henceforth known as PPL. Jodi Ann Arias was born on July 9th, 1980 in Salinas, California. I don't know why I can't say that word. To William and Sandra Arias. Arias and Alexander met in September 2006 at a PPL conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Arias converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which Alexander was a member, and was baptized by him on November 26th, 2006 in a ceremony in Southern California. Travis and Arias began dating in February 2007, and Arias moved to Mesa to live closer to Travis. In April 2008, she moved to Eureka, California, and lived there with her grandparents. Travis and Arias dated intermittently for a year and a half, often in a long-distance relationship, taking turns traveling between their respective Arizona and California homes. Travis's friends who knew Arias and observed them together tended to have a negative opinion of her, stating that the relationship was unusually tumultuous and that Arias's behavior was worrying. Worrying, yeah, that's what we'll call it. I personally would just call it psycho. Just saying. Travis was murdered on Wednesday, June 4th, 2008. He suffered 27 stab wounds, a slit throat, and a gunshot wound to the head. Medical examiner Kevin Horn would later testify that Travis's jugular vein, common carotid artery, and trachea had been slashed, and that he had defensive wounds on his hands. Horn further testified that Alexander may have been dead at the time the gunshot was inflicted, and that the back wounds were shallow. Alexander's death was ruled a homicide. He was buried at Riverside's Olivewood Memorial Park In early 2008, Alexander told acquaintances that Arias would join him for a work-related trip to Cancun, Mexico, scheduled for June 15th. In April, Travis asked to change his travel companion to another female friend, Marie Hall. On May 28th, a burglary occurred at the residence of Arias' grandparents, with whom Arias was living. Among the missing objects was a handgun chambered in 25 caliber, which was never recovered. .25 caliber, sorry. This later became significant as a shell case from a spent .25 caliber round was found near Travis's body at the murder scene. Well, I think we can already say that this doesn't look good, Jodi. It doesn't look good. I mean, are you serious? On June 2nd, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., Arias called Alexander 4 times but did not appear to reach him, as the longest of the call's duration was 17 seconds. After 3 a.m., Travis called Arias twice, the first time for 18 minutes, the second time for 41 minutes. At 4:03 a.m., Arias called Travis back, and the call lasted 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Neither these calls nor their transcripts were presented in Arias' trial. I'm not entirely sure why they weren't. I couldn't find anything that said why they weren't. I don't know if it would have helped her or hurt her. I honestly can't tell you because I don't know what they said. At 5:39 a.m., Arias drove south to rent a car for a long trip to Utah, as evidenced by a gasoline purchase in Eureka. If she lived in Eureka, I'm not entirely sure what she was getting gas for. Like, if she was renting a car, was it getting gas in the rental? Was it getting gas in her own car? Like, what were we doing? What were we doing? I have questions. On June 2nd at 8:04 a.m., Arias rented a car in Redding, California, and indicated that she would return the car to the same location. Now, from what I understand, you're not supposed to leave your car at a car rental place, so I don't know what happened to her car. Like, I don't know if she had somebody with her, like, when she rented the car, or what, or, like, what she was planning on doing. I honestly don't know. I got nothing. Arias visited friends in Southern California on her way to Utah for a PPL work conference and to meet with Ryan Burns, a PPL co-worker. By late evening on June 3rd, Arias had apparently set out for Salt Lake City. Travis missed an important conference call on the evening of June 4th. The following day, Arias met Burns in Salt Lake City, suburb of West Jordan, and attended a business meeting for the conference. Burns later said he noticed that Arias' formerly blonde hair was now dark brown and that she had cuts on her hands. On June 6th, she left Salt Lake City and drove west toward California. She called Travis several times and left several voicemail messages for him. She also accessed his cell phone voicemail system. Which, to me, and this might just be a me thing, but to me that screams like freaking stalker. Just saying. She called wow, I can't read. When Arias returned the car on June 7th, it had been driven about 2,800 miles. The rental clerk testified that the car was missing its floor mats and had red stains on its front and rear seats. However, it could not be verified that the car had floor mats when Arias picked it up, and the red stains could not be analyzed as the car was cleaned before police could examine it. Which is not really the rental company's fault. If they hadn't known that a homicide had taken place, they're required by law to clean and sanitize the car upon return. And that was even pre-COVID. So, like, that's a law, that's a requirement. So, you can't really blame the car company in this situation for cleaning the car because that's what they're supposed to do, you know? I had seen a lot of people saying stuff like, well, why did the car company just clean the car? Why didn't they report that the car was used by her? And I'm like, well, if they didn't know at the time that a crime had taken place, they can't report anything. You know what I mean? Let me turn that so it's not, like, all in your eye when I'm moving. On June 9th, having been unable to reach Travis, a concerned group of friends went to his home. His roommates had not seen him for several days, but they believed that he was out of town and thus did not suspect that anything was amiss. After finding a key to Alexander's bathroom, the group entered and found large pools of blood in the hallway to the master bathroom, and Travis's body was in the shower. And the 911 call, not heard by the jury, the dispatcher asked whether Travis had been suicidal or if anyone was angry enough to hurt him. Travis's friends mentioned Arias by name as a possible suspect, stating that Travis had told them that she had been stalking him, accessing his Facebook account, and slashing his car's tires. Well, we already know she's been accessing his voicemail, so, you know, classic stalker behavior here, which does not necessarily make it acceptable, because it's not by any means, so ladies, don't get any ideas. She was, like, full-on stalker at this point. Like, she was very obsessed with Travis, but more so, it was like, even if she didn't want to be with him, she didn't want anybody to be with him. So it was like that, I don't want you, but I don't want anyone else to want you either, kind of thing. Jodi, I think, on a deep level, needed psychological help. And it just wasn't given to her. And that's sad. Like I said, that doesn't mean that by any means what she did was okay or right, but I think she needed help that she wasn't able to get. And that's unfortunate. It's very sad. It's very sad, actually, to me. While searching Travis's home, police found his recently purchased digital camera damaged inside the washing machine. Police were able to recover deleted images showing Arias and Travis in sexually suggestive poses, taken at approximately 1:40 p.m. on June 4th. The final photograph of Travis alive, showing him in the shower, was taken at 5:29 p.m. that day. Photos taken moments later showed an individual believed to be Travis profusely bleeding on the bathroom floor. A bloody palm print was discovered along the wall in the bathroom hallway. It contained DNA from both Arias and Travis. On July 9th, 2008, Arias was indicted by a grand jury in Maricopa County, Arizona, for the first-degree murder of Travis Alexander. She was arrested at her home 6 days later and was extradited to Arizona on September 5th. Arias pleaded not guilty, as always, on September 11th. During this time, she provided several different accounts about her involvement in Travis's death. She first told police that she had not been in Mesa on the day of the murder and had last seen Travis in March 2008. Arias later told police that 2 intruders had broken into Travis's home, murdering him and attacking her. And honestly, the psychological... This is where I think the psychological help comes in, because either this girl's completely delusional or she really thought this was going to work. Because from the way that... from the videos that I watched of the trial on YouTube, and the way that she talked, she basically described like a ninja attack. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at this situation because it's not funny. But the fact that she was like, these 2 men like broke in through the window and they had these like sharp knives and they had these like billy clubs. And I'm like, this sounds like a ninja attack. Does it not? Like, I mean, you guys can look up the videos on YouTube and you can tell me, but I'm telling you, it sounds like she's describing a ninja attack. And I'm like, who would believe that? Obviously, nobody believed you because you're in prison. But who would believe that? 2 years after her arrest, Arias told police that she killed Alexander in self-defense, claiming that she had been a victim of domestic violence. I believe that about as much as I believe the ninja attack. On April 6, 2009, a motion to reconsider the defendant's motion to disqualify the Maricopa County District Attorney's Office was denied. On May 18th, the court ordered Arias to submit to IQ and competency testing. In June 2011, a defense filing detailed Arias' attorney's efforts to obtain text messages and emails. The prosecution initially told defense attorneys that no text messages had been sent or received by Travis were available. But the prosecution was then ordered to turn over several hundred such messages. Mesa Police Detective Esteban Flores told defense attorneys that there was nothing out of the ordinary among Travis's emails. About 8,000 were turned over to the defense in June of 2009. The trial commenced in Maricopa County Superior Court before Judge Sherry K. Stevens. The voir dire proceedings began on December 10th, 2012. On December 20th, Arias' attorney argued that the prosecution was systematically excluding women and black people. Prosecutor Juan Martinez said that race and sex were irrelevant to his decisions to strike certain jurors. Stevens ruled that the prosecution had shown no bias in the jury selection. I don't really think they did either, but what do I know? I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, but I don't know. I don't know if she thought, like, having women and black people on the jury were gonna, like, help her in some way. Like, you know, I'm not really sure why that was such a big deal. But, yeah. That's what they say. Ryan Burns testified that when Arias visited him in Utah, the 2 spent several hours hugging and kissing on a large beanbag chair. She told him that she had cut her hands on broken glass while working at a restaurant called Margaritaville. And yes, actually, this restaurant does exist, because I saw a YouTube video and somebody was saying that this restaurant doesn't exist. She did not work there, and it did not exist in Eureka, but there is one in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So it does exist. It is just not in Eureka. A detective testified that no restaurant by that name had ever existed in the Eureka area. At the time, Arias was working at a restaurant called Casa Romos. Arias later testified that after she cut her finger, she had a bazillion margaritas to make. Not sure why that was significant, but that's where we are. Later, the prosecution argued that the presence of a .25 caliber round found near Travis's body and the theft of a handgun of the same caliber from Arias' residence in Eureka the previous week proved that she had staged the burglary and used the gun to kill Travis. Martinez claimed that Jodi had stalked Alexander and had slashed his tires twice. In the final days before his death, Travis called her a sociopath and the worst thing that ever happened to me, and stated that he was afraid of her. I mean, fair. I would be afraid of this chick too. She's like full on insane. Like a special kind of crazy. And that's coming from someone who's bipolar with like a lot of other underlying issues. Yeah. And like, if she had truly moved on from the end of their relationship, like she claimed at trial, why then were you going back to see him? Why were you over there at all? Like, then just stay away from him, you know? Like, you're not making yourself look good here. Just saying. Doesn't look good for you, Miss Jodi. Arias took the stand in her own defense on February 4th, 2013, testifying for a total of 18 days, a duration described by criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos as unprecedented. On the first day of her testimony, Arias told of being violently abused by her parents from the age of 7. I could not find anything to back that up, by the way. Not a thing. She testified that she rented a car in Reading because Budget's website provided 2 options, one to the north and one to the south, and her brother lived in Reading. Alexander, on her second day of the stand, Arias said that her relationship with Travis included oral sex and sodomy. She said that the sodomy was painful the first time she experienced it, and that Travis believed that such activities would not contravene Mormon rules concerning vaginal intercourse. Arias said that she and Alexander eventually had intercourse, but less often. A phone sex tape was played in court that Arias had recorded without Travis's knowledge, apparently hoping to use it to embarrass him to his Mormon peers. Arias also testified that Alexander secretly harbored pedophilic desires for both male and female children, and that she tried to help him with these urges. Forensic experts testified that an examination of Travis's computer found no evidence of pornographic material. Jodi testified that her relationship with Travis had became increasingly physically and emotionally abusive. She said that Travis shook her while saying, quote, "I'm fucking sick of you," then began screaming at me, after which he body slammed me on the floor at the foot of his bed and taunted me, saying, "Don't act like that hurts," before he called me a bitch and kicked me in the ribs. End quote. Arias said that, quote, "He went to kick me again and I put my hand out." Quote, end quote. She held up her left hand in the courtroom, showing that her ring finger was in fact crooked. Arias claimed that she killed Alexander in self-defense after he attacked her when she dropped his camera, forcing her to fight for her life. This was Arias's third different account of the events leading to Travis's death, which prosecutors, courtroom observers, and jurors felt severely damaged her credibility. Rebuttal witnesses called by the prosecution included several of Travis's other girlfriends, who stated that he never exhibited any problems with anger or violence. Honestly, at this point, it sounds like Jodi was kind of the abusive one. You know what I mean? All right, y'all. I'm going to pause out. I'm going to get dressed, and I'll be right back to finish the story. During the trial, videotape of a September 2008 Inside Edition interview was played, in which Arias had said, "No jury is going to convict me because I am innocent. You can mark my words on that." Discussing the statement during her testimony, Arias said, "At the time of the interview, I had plans to commit suicide." Sorry, that's quote. "At the time of the interview, I had plans to commit suicide. So I was extremely confident that no jury would convict me because I didn't expect any of you to be here." End quote. At the close of his cross-examination of Arias, Martinez Sorry, I'm struggling with my shoe here. Martinez replayed the video and prompted Arias to affirm that she had said during the interview that she would not be convicted because she was innocent. When being questioned by Martinez, Arias was initially combative and flippant, but after several days, Martinez highlighted the possible lies and inconsistencies in her testimony, and she admitted to stabbing and shooting Alexander despite her earlier claims of a memory lapse. Jury foreman William Zervakos later expressed...
Tell me what 2 to 3X would fit in this. You said his name.
Jury foreman William Zervakos later expressed an opinion common to jurors and observers when he told ABC's Good Morning America, "I think 18 days hurt her. I think she was not a good witness." Well, yeah, it could be hard to lie for 18 days straight, huh, Jodi? Beginning on March 14th, psychologist Richard Samuels testified for the defense for nearly 6 days. He said that Arias had likely been suffering from acute stress at the time of the murder, sending her body into a fight or flight response to defend herself, which caused her brain to stop retaining memory. In response to a juror's question asking whether this scenario could occur even if this was a premeditated murder, as the prosecution contended, he responded, "Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No." Samuels also diagnosed Arias with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Martinez attacked Samuels' credibility, accusing him of bias and of having formed a relationship with Arias. Samuels had previously testified that he had compassion for Arias. Beginning on March 26th, Alice LaViolette, a psychotherapist who specializes in domestic violence, testified that Arias was a victim of domestic abuse, and that most victims do not tell anyone because they feel ashamed and humiliated. LaViolette summarized emails from Travis's close friends. They have basically advised Ms. Arias to move on from the relationship, that Mr. Travis has been abusive to women. The jury posted nearly 160 questions to LaViolette, many of them focusing on Arias's credibility. Clinical psychologist Janine DeMarc testified for the prosecution, stating she found no evidence that Travis had abused Arias and no evidence of PTSD or amnesia in Arias. Furthermore, DeMarc testified how Arias' claims of complete amnesia for long periods is inconsistent with traumatic amnesia associated with PTSD, which manifests as gaps in memory for shorter periods of time. Instead, DeMarc said that Arias suffered from borderline personality disorder, showing signs of immaturity and an unstable sense of identity. People who suffer from such a disorder have terrified feeling of being abandoned by others, DeMarc told jurors. The final defense witness was psychologist Robert Geffner, who said that DeMarc's borderline diagnosis was not appropriate, and that all tests taken by Arias since her arrest pointed toward an anxiety disorder stemming from trauma. He also said that the test indicated that she had answered questions honestly. The state recalled Horn, who testified further on the gunshot wound, and called forensic neuropsychologist Jill Hayes, who disputed Geffner's testimony that the MMPI test was not geared toward diagnosing borderline personality disorder. Responding to Arias' testimony about buying a 5-gallon gas can at a Walmart store in Salinas on June 3, 2008, that she returned on the same day, on April 24th, the prosecution called Amanda Webb, a Salinas Walmart store employee, to the stand. Webb said that according to Walmart's records, no one had returned a 5-gallon gas can on that date, and that Arias returned the gas can 1 week after having purchased it. The gas can evidence was seen as important in establishing premeditation, as the prosecutor argued that Arias was trying to avoid being recorded on gas station security cameras as she drove to Mesa. In closing arguments on May 4th, Arias' defense argued that the premeditation theory did not make sense. what happened in that moment in time. The relationship of chaos that ended in chaos as well. There's nothing about what happened on June 4th in that bathroom that looks planned. Couldn't it also be that after everything they went through in that relationship that she simply snapped? Ultimately, if Miss Arias is guilty of any crime at all, it is the crime of manslaughter and nothing more. End quote. In rebuttal, Martinez described the extent and variety of Travis's wounds. Quote, there is no evidence that he ever laid a hand on her. Ever. Nothing indicates that this is anything less than a slaughter. There was no way to appease this woman who just wouldn't leave him alone. End quote. Arias' testimony added to a very long defense portion of the guilt phase of the trial, which led to problems with retention of jury members. On April 3rd, a jury member was dismissed for misconduct. The defense asked for a mistrial, which the judge denied. On April 12th, another juror was excused for health reasons. A third juror was dismissed on April 25th after being arrested for a DUI offense. By April 25th, defense costs had reached almost $1.7 million. On May 7, 2013, after 15 hours of deliberation, Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder. All 12 jurors found her guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, of which 7 additionally found her guilty of felony murder. As the verdict was read, Travis's family smiled and hugged one another. Crowds outside the courtroom began cheering and chanting. Following the conviction, the prosecution was required to convince the jury that the murder was cruel, heinous, or depraved for them to determine that Arias was eligible for the death penalty. The aggravation phase of the trial started on May 15, 2013. The only witness was the medical examiner who had performed Alexander's autopsy. Arias' attorneys, who had repeatedly asked to step down from the case, provided only brief opening statements and closing arguments in which they said that the adrenaline rushing through Travis's body may have prevented him from feeling much pain during his death. So her own defense team said, we don't want to do this. Prosecutor Martinez showed photos of the corpse and crime scene to the jury, then paused for 2 minutes of silence to illustrate how long he claimed that it took for Travis to die.
Come on, Nebby.
After less than 3 hours of consideration, the jury determined that Arias was eligible for the death penalty. The penalty phase began on May 16, 2013, when prosecutors called Travis's family members to offer victim impact statements in an effort to convince the jury that Arias' crime merited a death sentence. On May 21st, Arias offered an allocution, during which she pleaded for a life sentence. Arias acknowledged that her plea for life was a reversal of remarks that she made to a television reporter shortly after her conviction, in which she had said that she preferred the death penalty. Each time I said that, I meant it, but I lacked perspective, she said. Until very recently, I could not imagine standing before you and asking you to give me life. She said that she changed her mind to avoid bringing more pain to members of her family who were in the courtroom. At one point, Arias held up a white t-shirt with the word survivor written across it, telling the jurors that she would sell the clothing and donate all proceeds to victims of domestic abuse. She also said that she would donate her hair to Locks of Love while in prison, and had already done so 3 times while in jail. That evening, in a joint jailhouse interview with the Arizona Republic, KPNX TV, and NBC's Today, Arias said that she did not know whether the jury would decide on life or death. Whatever they come back with, I will have to deal with it. I have no other choice. Regarding the verdict, she said it felt like a huge sense of unreality. I felt betrayed, actually, by the jury. I was hoping they would see things for what they are. I felt really awful for my family and what they were thinking. On May 23rd, the sentencing phase of Arias' trial resulted in a hung jury, prompting the judge to declare a mistrial for that phase. The jury had reached an 8-4 decision in favor of the death penalty. After the jury was discharged, jury foreman Zarvarko stated that the jury found the responsibility of weighing the death sentence overwhelming, but were horrified when their efforts ended in mistrial. By the end of it, we were mentally and emotionally exhausted, he said. I think we were horrified when we found out that they had actually called a mistrial, and we felt like we had failed. On May 30th, Maricopa County Attorney Bill Montgomery discussed the next steps at a news conference. He said that he was confident that an impartial jury could be seated, but that it was possible that lawyers and the victim's family could agree to scrap the trial in favor of a life sentence with no parole. Arias had said, quote, "I don't think there is an untainted jury pool anywhere in the world right now. That's what it feels like. But I still believe in the system to a degree, so we'll just go through that if that happens." Defense attorneys responded, quote, "If the diagnosis made by the state psychologist is correct, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office is seeking to impose the death penalty upon a mentally ill woman who has no prior criminal history. It is not incumbent upon Ms. Arias' defense counsel to resolve this case." End quote. During the trial, defense attorneys filed for mistrial in January, April, and May of 2013. Arias' lawyers argued in January that Esteban Flores, the lead Mesa police detective on the case, perjured himself during a 2009 pretrial hearing aimed at determining whether the death penalty should be considered an option for jurors. Flores testified at the 2009 hearing that based on his own review of the scene and a discussion with the medical examiner, it was apparent that Travis had been shot in the forehead first. Contrary to Flores' testimony at the 2009 hearing, the medical examiner told jurors the gunshot probably would have incapacitated Travis. Given his extensive defense wounds, including stab marks and slashes to his hands, arms, and legs, it was not likely the shot came first. Flores denied perjury and said during his trial testimony that he just misunderstood what the medical examiner told him. In April, the defense claimed the prosecutor had acted inappropriately and said the case resembled a modern-day equivalent to the Salem witch trials. In the motion, the defense team contended the prosecutorial misconduct has infested these proceedings with a level of unfairness that cannot be cured by any other means. The motion also stated there is a circus-like atmosphere inside the courtroom and that Martinez had yelled at witnesses, attacked witnesses on a personal level, and had thrown evidence. The motion also alleged that Martinez chose to release evidence and to pose for pictures with his fans on the steps of the courthouse. The attorneys claimed Arias was in a position in which she could not present a complete defense and that only constitutional course was to declare mistrial. On May 20th, 2013, defense attorneys filed motion which alleged that a defense witness who had been due to testify at the preceding Friday, the 17th, began receiving death threats for her scheduled testimony on Arias' behalf. The day before the filing, the witness contacted counsel for Arias, stating that she was no longer willing to testify because of the threats. The motion continued. It should also be noted that these threats follow those made to Alice LaViolette, a record of which was made ex parte and under seal. The motion was denied, as was a motion for a stay in the proceedings that had been sought to give time to appeal the decisions to the Arizona Supreme Court. On July 6, 2018, Arias' current attorneys, Margaret M. Green, a.k.a. Peg, and Corey Engel filed a 324-page appeal seeking her murder conviction be overturned at the Court of Appeals. On October 17, 2019, Arias' attorneys argued to the Court of Appeals that her sentence should be overturned on the basis that Martinez acted inappropriately throughout the trial, resulting in a media frenzy and affecting the outcome of the trial. On March 24, 2020, the court held that, notwithstanding egregious and self-promoting misconduct by the prosecutor, Arias had been convicted based upon the overwhelming evidence of her guilt and upheld the conviction. In June 2015, following a restitution hearing, Arias was ordered to pay more than $32,000 to Travis's siblings. Mother was already deceased at this time. Her attorney stated that this was about 1/3 of the amount requested. As of 2023, Arias is housed at the Arizona Department of Corrections, number 281129, which is located at Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville. She started her sentence in the complex's maximum security Lumley unit, but has since been downgraded to the medium security unit. That is the absolutely horrifying story of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. If Travis Alexander's siblings happen to see this, I hope you know that my thoughts and prayers are with you, and I am very, very sorry for what happened to your family. As always, from me, please be cautiously kind to others. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and make good choices. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all guys next Monday. Bye!